After a long day at work, I was sitting at the dining table looking through my phone when I suddenly realized what was happening. I was home, unwinding, while listening to my children's laughter in the living room. My wife of 12 years, Olivia, then stormed in, her face twisted in rage as she entered the room, holding her phone in her shaking palm. "Who the heck is she?" she demanded, her voice trembling. I glanced at her, my mind racing to figure out what she was really asking. "Don't be stupid with me, Adam," she said and shoved her phone in my face. I recoiled a little before glancing at the screen. In clear black and white, my stomach dropped. The text came from an unidentified Facebook account. The sender identified herself as a worried woman who had discovered my Tinder profile, complete with my name, pictures, and a history of messages I'd sent to several women. Obscene messages? I laughed, a little, more out of shock than amusement. "This is ridiculous," I said, shaking my head. "Olivia, you are aware that I do not use Tinder." But instead of laughing, she pivoted and retrieved her own phone. My pulse raced as I watched her download the Tinder app, immediately seeing her typing frantically. "Go ahead and explain this to me," she spat, holding up her phone. On the screen, my name, my photos, my information, my most recent active status. Posted less than an hour ago. I grabbed her phone and browsed through the messages. My gut twisted. My name, my pictures, my profile, my geographical location. Yet, it wasn't me. I had never made a Tinder account in my life. "Listen to me, Olivia," I pleaded, gazing up at her. "I promise you, I have no idea who created this. Someone must have been using my photos." She laughed sharply, bitterly. "Did someone really just decide to use your face to catfish women? For convenience?" I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the weight of frustration crushing my chest. "Of course not. But you must trust me, Olivia. This isn't my account. I have no reason to use Tinder. I adore you, our family. Why would I jeopardize everything for something so foolish?" But she wasn't listening. Her expression was set in stone. "I don't know, Adam, but your eyes are filled with betrayal. And something else. Something disgusting," she snapped, pulling the phone back. "Why don't you tell me?" She scrolled through the messages, flirtations, obscene jokes, and the worst of all, pictures of me. The entire world seemed to tilt off its axis. "This isn't me," I said again, desperation thick in my voice. "Someone is setting me up. Please believe me." She let out a short, sharp exhale. "I want to trust you, Adam. But tell me, how did these photos I took, end up on this account?" She shook her head, her breath shaky. I followed her gaze to the images on the screen, ones I recognized immediately. Private photos, the same ones from our anniversary. Photos I had saved on my laptop. A realization hit me like a freight train. Had only ever uploaded those pictures to one device, my old laptop. The same laptop that had been sitting in our house for months before I replaced it. The same laptop I had lent to our neighbor, Rick, after he told me his had broken down. My mouth went dry. Rick. But before I could get another word out, Olivia scoffed, her face hollow. "Oh, you're quiet now, huh?" she sneered. I could see it in her eyes. She wanted me to confess. She wanted me to admit to something I hadn't done. "I gave you a chance to be honest with me, Adam. I wanted to hear it from you. But it looks like I was just wasting my time." I stepped toward her. "Please, Olivia, I swear—" "Stop!" she snapped. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. She recoiled as if I were a stranger. "I don't even want to look at you right now," she whispered before turning away. She vanished down the hallway, leaving me standing there, frozen in the middle of our kitchen. Crushing weight settled over my chest. I had to prove my innocence. But how do you prove something when the odds are already stacked against you? That night, Olivia refused to talk to me. She slept in the guest room while I sat alone in the living room, trying to piece together what had just happened. But deep down, I already knew the truth. It didn't matter, because in her eyes, I was already guilty. And that's when I realized, the moment she decided to believe a stranger over me. That was the beginning of the end, not when she showed me the messages, not when she stormed in demanding answers. It was the moment she chose not to believe me, and I wasn't sure if I would ever be able to forgive her for that. But Olivia, she didn't stop at accusing me. She made sure everyone knew. By nightfall, my phone began exploding. First, a text from her sister. "I'm sickened, Adam. How could you do this to Olivia and the kids?" Then another. Her mother this time. "I'm at a loss for words. I just hope it was worth it." And then, the worst of all, her brother Marcus, who never calls. I barely had time to process it before I heard an engine roar into my driveway. A door slammed. Heavy footsteps stormed onto my porch, and the moment I opened the door, Marcus's fist crashed into my jaw. She mumbled, "Good." I told her straight out, "I didn't expect you to forgive me." She winced. "But I do expect you to," I carried on. "Every lie you told, every individual you promised to reverse, and every single thing you did to Olivia, you're going to take responsibility for." She nodded rapidly, as though she had already considered it. She assured me, "I already began this when I contacted your former supervisor. I spoke with some of our mutual friends, told them the truth, and even created a public statement outlining everything I learned about her. I tried to determine whether this was another act of desperation, another performance. But this time, she seemed genuinely desperate, not for herself, but for me." I leaned back, rubbing my face. "Why now, Olivia?" I asked wearily. "Why didn't you see the truth until it was too late?" "I believed I was right," she admitted. "I thought I was defending. I let my feelings cloud my judgment. I hurt the children, and when I discovered the truth, I was so embarrassed by what I had done that I didn't know how to approach you." I shook my head slowly and let out a breath. She wiped her eyes. "Now, I just want to make things right." Even if silence fell between us again, but this time it was hollow rather than heavy. The damage was already done. "I have to go get the kids," I said, standing up. She nodded and stood as well. "Is it possible for us to speak later?" I met her eyes. She seemed like she wanted to say more, but she held back and moved aside, allowing me to leave. I stepped outside into the cold December air, inhaling deeply. I had confronted the woman who had ruined me, and even though she wanted a second chance, I wasn't sure if I had anything left to offer. So I drove away. The kids were quiet in the back seat, discussing school, their friends, and the Christmas presents they hoped to receive. Entering a life that should have been mine, but wasn't for over a year, felt surreal. Olivia had barely let me be a part of their lives. Now I was nothing more than a voice on the other end of the phone. It was both comforting and painfully strange to sit here with them. "Dad?" I glanced in the rearview mirror. My oldest, Lucas, was watching me closely. He was 12 now. In that brief time, his face had changed. He'd grown up. There was something in his eyes that wasn't there before. Hesitation. His voice was deeper when he finally spoke. "Are you staying this time?" I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening on the steering wheel. I hated that he had to ask. Before I could respond, my youngest daughter, Ava, spoke up. "You left because you had to work really far away," she said, swinging. Her legs. I felt a sharp pang in my chest. I had never left them voluntarily. "You can work here, right?" she asked. To them, I had simply vanished. I swallowed hard. "I don't know yet. But I'm here now." Lucas didn't look convinced, but Ava, bless her innocence, nodded excitedly. "Can we get ice cream before we go to Grandma's?" she asked. I chuckled softly. "Sure, kiddo, ice cream it is." For a little while, I could pretend. I could forget. But when I dropped them off, reality returned. I had no intention of going inside, but Olivia stepped onto the porch, arms crossed. "We need to talk," she said. I rubbed the back of my neck. "This isn't about us, Olivia." She cut in. "It's about my family." I scowled. "What about them?" She hesitated. "They don't think they did anything wrong." I let out a humorless laugh. "Of course they don't." She winced, but didn't argue. Her family had destroyed me as much as she had. Her brother, Marcus, the man who humiliated me in my own home, had never contacted me. Her father, the man who kicked me out of my own house, had never apologized. "Did you expect them to?" I asked coldly. She sighed. "I told them what Richard did. I told them you were innocent." I folded my arms, waiting. "You know what my father said?" she asked, turning away in shame. I didn't answer. "If it wasn't Tinder, it would have been something else." My blood turned ice cold. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. He thought I would have cheated eventually. That I always would. I asked, "And Marcus?" She hesitated before shaking her head. "He still thinks he was protecting me," she admitted. I laughed bitterly. "Protecting you?" She winced again, but stayed silent. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "What are you saying, Olivia?" She looked at me, hesitation in her eyes. "I just don't want things to be ugly forever." I stared at her in disbelief. "You want me to pretend this never happened?" She shook her head. "I don't know what I want, but I know our children don't deserve to see us like this." She was right about one thing. The kids didn't deserve this. But neither did I. I let out a sharp breath. "I will never forgive them. I will never sit in the same room as Marcus again. I will never shake your father's hand." Her lips parted as if to argue, but she knew there was nothing more to say. "You wanted to start fixing this with them," I continued. "But you can't undo what they did." I turned toward my car. "So you're just leaving?" she called after me. I stopped and glanced back at her. "You let me," I said. She didn't respond. Looking back, I got into my car and drove away. For the first time in months, her apology didn't make me feel angry. It didn't make me feel betrayed. It just made me feel exhausted. I had spent so much time fighting to be heard, to prove my innocence, to be in my children's lives. I was done. That night, I picked up my phone, typed a message to my lawyer, and filed for divorce. The next morning, the papers arrived. I didn't hesitate. I called my lawyer and told him to start the process, because Olivia had already broken everything. By noon, I got an email confirming she had received them. That night, I sat in my hotel room, staring at my glass of whiskey. A crime drama played on the muted TV, but I wasn't watching. For the first time since the accusations, since being thrown out of my own house, I felt relief. Not sadness. Not despair. Relief. A sharp knock at the door broke the silence. I knew who it was before I even answered. When I opened it, Olivia stood there, clutching the divorce papers to her chest. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Adam," she murmured. "You're serious?" I groaned, running a hand through my hair. "You're really doing this?" she whispered, stepping inside before I could stop her. She held up the divorce papers. "Please, Adam, I know I hurt you. I made a mistake. But divorce is a waste of our life, our family." I laughed bitterly. "No, Olivia," I said. "You threw this away the moment you trusted a stranger over me. The moment you let your family destroy me." Tears filled her eyes. "Is there nothing I can do?" I met her gaze. "There's nothing," I said, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free.